Did you know that in 2012, Apple captured 85% of all smartphone industry profits while selling less than 20% of the phones? That's dominance. But here's the twist. Apple's greatest threat isn't Samsung or Microsoft. The real danger is, let's find out in next 15 minutes. Apple is more than a company. It is a cultural icon. It gave us iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad, the products that change how billions of us live and work together. It is the world's most valuable company. For decades, we have lived under a powerful myth. The myth of Apple, the fearless rebel, the company that stood on a stage just like this with a single dramatic announcement. We have watched them slay giants. The iPod killing the Walkman, the iPhone humbling Nokia, and the iPad upending the PC market. But remember, history teaches us that great companies rarely die because of competitors. They die when they lose their soul. They collapse from within. And in Apple's case, the story is not about Samsung beating them with foldables or Microsoft overtaking them with AI. It's about the subtle but profound shift in Apple's leadership, innovation, culture, and priority that could erode the very DNA which made Apple Apple. My hypothesis today is this: Apple isn't it losing to its rivals. It's been consumed by a cultural shift so profound that it no longer resembles the company it once was. This isn't a story of a company failing. It's far more fascinating. It's the story of a company succeeding so brilliantly at a new mission that it has, in a way, sacrificed its soul. And let us see how. Number one, people, the jobs to the cook transition. Let's start with the leadership because culture flows from the top. Let's go back to the golden age of Apple, the years of Steve Jobs. Now in MBA programs, people love to study his reality distortion field, his legendary micromanagement. But what he was building? He wasn't building a company, he was building a movement. Steve Jobs was a product first. He was obsessed over every detail, from the curve of the iPhone corner to the sound of MacBook. He built Apples around creators, engineers, and designers. Tim Cook, on the other side, who took over in 2011, is it's completely different. He's operational genius. Under him, Apple's supply chain became the global masterpiece. But here's the cost. Inside, like Jony, the design visionary behind the iMac, the iPhone, grew frustrated. He was dispirited by Cook's lack of passion for product development. He eventually left in 2019, marking a cultural turning point. Under Jobs, product were the heroes. But under Cook, operations and finance took the front seat. That's not inherently bad, but it's very different. Apple made staggering $63.9 billion in profit, the most of any company in the world. Now let's look at the products. Think back, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, each wasn't just a product, it was a revolution in itself. But since 2010, what's the new biggest category Apple has launched? Apple Watch in 2015 and iPods, both are great, but they're accessories, not category defining revolution. Meanwhile, the iPhone still brings over half of Apple's revenue. But most updates now feel like incremental. Better cameras, new colors, slightly thinner design, no ports gone. Powerful, yes, but not jaw-dropping. Cook wasn't a product guy. He's an operational master. And he initiated a very subtle yet powerful strategic coup, which I call. He replaced Jobs' product-first mentality with a profit-first mentality. The goal shifted from denting the universe with monetizing the ecosystem. Look at the data itself. In 2012, services were a footnote. Today, they are a behemoth. With a gross margin of 75%, they are on track to surpass the iPhones as the latest contributors to Apple's gross profit. The iPhone is now not the bait, it's the hook. No, actually it's the bait. It's the incredible expensive ticket you buy to enter the world of Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, or iCloud subscriptions. This is a masterclass in business model innovation, not product innovation. The strategic shift had a ripple effect on the company's culture. Tim Cook's leadership is not autocratic, it's democratic and delegative. An employee once described him as very calm, steady, but will slice you up with questions. And this is the leadership of an operator, not a visionary. It encourages efficiency and minimizes the risk, but can also stifle the audacious, world-changing ideas that once defined the company. Now, when I compare this with Samsung, which had pushed foldables into the mainstream, or Microsoft, which reinvented itself around cloud and AI, Apple seems more cautious, almost risk-averse. And the danger is, when you milk a cash cow for too long, you forget how to raise the next herd. Did you know that the Vision Pro headset is Apple's first new product category in staggering 8 years? That speaks about the paradigm shift. Let's look at technology, ahead in chips, but behind in AI. In technology, Apple is a paradox. On one hand, it's brilliant. Apple Silicon, those M1, M2 chips reshape the PC space. Macs become faster, more efficient, and more competitive than Intel-based PCs. That's Apple at its best, beating on itself, taking control and sort of winning. But in AI, Apple is behind. Siri once was a pioneer, now feels like clumsy next to Google Assistant or ChatGPT or even Alexa. Employees themselves have admitted Apple may be 2 years behind in generative AI research. Meanwhile, Microsoft is weaving AI Copilot into Office, Windows, and Azure. Google is embedding AI across the ecosystem. Apple, quite private, almost reactive. And here is the irony. Apple is winning in the hardware space, but the risk, irrelevance in the software, intelligence that defines the next decade. Now let's look at the segment 4, strategy, profit over purpose. This is where the number tells a sobering story. For years, we thought Microsoft and Samsung were playing the catch-up game, but they were the punchlines. But while Apple was busy building a subscription empire, its rivals were undergoing their own internal revolutions. Look at Microsoft. Under Satya Nadella, the company shed its know-it-all arrogance and adopted a learn-it-all culture. They stopped fighting the open source community and embraced the cloud, building Azure into a massive cloud that now powers a significant portion of global economy. They innovated in the hardware space with the wildly successful Surface line. Microsoft didn't stagnate. It transformed its very own identity and the stock went from 32 to 500. And Samsung, they were the ultimate fast followers. But in recent years, if you follow, they have become an unchained hardware innovator. While Apple sticks to a single form factor, Samsung is experimenting with the future. They lead the market in foldable phones. They are putting 200 megapixel cameras in the phones. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what a phone can do. They're taking the product risk that Apple is now afraid to take. And this is where I started with. The number tells you a sobering story. In 2013 to 2014, Apple spent staggering $183 billion in R&D. Impressive, isn't it? But at the same time, they spent $674 billion on stock buybacks. That's nearly 4 times more spent on financial engineering than on building the future. And it reminds me, Steve Jobs once said, make great products and profit will follow. Today, it feels reversed. Today, maximize the profit first and then figure out the product. Investors love it. But the long term, a company that prioritizes buybacks over bold bet risks the hollowing out itself, because money can buy back shares, but it can't buy back the lost vision. And on that note, did you know Apple's buyback program is the largest in the corporate history, just not America, globally? And as an MBA grad, how can I not talk about rivals, competition and market? Now let's zoom out to the market. Externally, Apple looks invincible. Samsung sells more phones, but Apple makes nearly all the profits. Microsoft dominates the cloud, but in consumer hardware, Apple rocks it out. But here's the danger: missing the next wave. Microsoft reinvented itself around enterprise and cloud AI. Samsung bet on foldables. But Apple, it's been slow, waiting and very cautious. If Apple misses the next computing paradigm, whether it's AR, AI or even health tech, it could become the Nokia or the BlackBerry. Now let's talk about the last segment. If there is one moment that symbolizes Apple's internal unraveling, is Jony's departure in 2019. He wasn't just a designer, he was Apple's heart and soul. The voice asking, is this beautiful? Is this right? His partnership with Jobs created iPhone, the iMac, the iPad, the Apple Store. But Cook, I've felt marginalized it. He said boardrooms were filled with more corporate voices, fewer product visionaries. The man who designed the modern world left not because he ran out of ideas, because he reportedly felt and said he was no longer prioritizing design and innovation in the way once the company did. And the result, we see it in the products. And I jokingly tell to my friends also, the return of more ports in the MacBook, the thicker, the more utility design, making it smaller, thinner, one jack gone, one port changed. They are better, more practical devices. But are they the work of art which Apple was known for? Absolutely not. The pursuit of radical innovation has been replaced by a focus of refinement over revolution. And investors didn't care. The Apple stock soared. But Apple's cultural heart skipped a beat. Jony described Cook as a leader who rarely engaged in deep product reviews, something which was unimaginable during Steve Jobs' days. Now it comes to the point, what's next? So, has Apple been beaten by Samsung or Microsoft? No. It's still towers above them in revenue, profit, and brand power. But here's the real truth. The only company that can destroy Apple is Apple itself. And we have seen it in before. In 1990s, Apple nearly collapsed. Not because of Microsoft, not because of new company, because of an internal chaos. Jobs returned, he refocused and saved the company. In 2020, now Apple faces a very similar test. Will it remain the most efficient profit machine in the history, or will it rediscover its audacious soul? The one that once said, think different. In 1997, Apple was weeks from bankruptcy. In 2011, it became the most powerful company and valuable company in the world, all from internal invention. So, what do you think? Is Apple still the bold innovator once it was? Or is it drifting into safe corporate meritocracy? I want you to honestly drop your comments and thoughts, and I will feature the best one in my next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still thinks Apple can go no wrong, because the real story isn't Apple versus Samsung, it's Apple versus Apple.